Hey gang, today we're going to do I'm Gonna Find Another You by John Mayer off of his Continuum album. A great little sort of old school B.B. King blues that's kind of jazzed up a bit, got some great harmonies in it and all that. Gives me a real chance to get out my fat axe and it kind of sounded wrong, but anyway, get out this guitar and play a tune like this. I'm going to do the demo. I'm going to play the whole song through more or less so you can see all the different parts. So if you want to skip forward to the instruction, it's around at the 3-minute mark. All right, gang. Let's go over this now. Now, I'm not going to go through it note for note because, well, that would be just kind of ridiculous. We'll just kind of cover the chords and sort of how John Mayer plays it. But I do have some of it tabbed out for you, so you definitely want to download that, okay? And I think the tab is going to help a lot to understand the chords and the fingering that he's revolving around. Now, this happens to be a blues in A, so guess what? The main chords are going to be A 7th, D, and E 7th. What makes it unique, or what makes it interesting and nostalgic, if you will, and jazzy, are the movements between those chords, and then the bridge is a little bit different. But how one gets to the 3-chord or the voicings that we're using on the 2-chord, that's what makes it really interesting. So let's go over it. We're going to go over it, the intro first, then we'll do verse 1, then we'll do the bridge, and then we'll do the last verse, which is a little bit different than the first verse. Okay, so let's start out with the intro. So if in the intro, imagine that you're making your big boy A chord up here on the 5th fret. Okay, and that's if you hit all 6 strings. Now what's happening is he's going to create some what's called retrograde motion, starting at a note lower and then going up and then pivoting down a little bit and coming back up to where he was. So I'll show you what I mean. This first sequence right here, that's going up, and now he goes down to go back to where he started. Okay? All right, so it starts out by, if you imagine that big boy A, we're just going to play the top 3 strings, that triad there. So on the 3, 2, 1, we're going to play 6, 5, 5 respectively. And then we're going to play 7, 7, 5. So it sounds like this. It's a triad, okay? Now we're going to go to playing dyads from now on. Now we're going to go to the 3rd and 4th strings, 4th and 3rd strings. We're going to play 7 and 6 respectively. And then on the 3 and 2 strings, we'll play 6 and 5. So far we have. One more time. Okay, now we're going to play this. 4 and 2 on the 4 and 3 strings. And back up to where we were before, 7 and 6. All right, so we have this. Should say, if you want to drop the string and keep close on the position, we can play. That works too. It's the same notes. These are the same notes as this. So if you want to play it on the 5 and 4 strings, have at it. I channeled minor Steve Howe and moved positions. Okay, so now we've got that. The last chord is this. That is an augmented chord, an E, not demented, augmented. Augmented just means you take the 5 of a major chord and you sharp it. So in other words, it starts out with this E major triad, or even this whole chord right here. And it takes the 5th, which is a B, and sharps it to a C. Okay, so like this. Right? Nice chord of tension. And if you're wondering, another place where it's used is in No Particular Place to Go, the Chuck Berry classic. Although it's a D augmented to start out, and it's a little bit higher. That's the sound. Very tense chord. All right, coolness. All right, let's go over the first verse. Now he's arpeggiating all these chords. It starts out on an A. 2 of those. Now he goes to an A7th. Now if you're listening to that pattern, it's hitting the 6th, the A is hitting the 6th, and then hitting the top 3 strings, arpeggiating on those. Up and down. The A7 is hitting the bottom string, the 6th, and then hitting the 4, 3, and 2 strings. And that's just arpeggiating over an A7 chord. Next one is kind of cool. That is, it doesn't sound like it, but that is an ordinary D chord. But we're jazzing it up by instead playing that on the bass. Right, the D chord would be the typical one with a 5th on the bass, or the 5th string bass note at the 5th fret. And here's another D right here on the 3rd string, 7th fret. Right, that one. And now we're going to, instead of just playing that straight, which would sound fine, we're taking the bottom note and moving it up to its 3rd in D, which is right here at the 9th fret. And that's where he gets the sort of Hendrix chord movements that he's got, which you heard me playing. And then to really put the icing on the cake, we're going to also play this note up here, which is the A, which is the 5th. We're going to move it from down here. We're going to double it up here. We're going to take this F sharp, and, which is the 3rd, and we're going to play the A instead. So we're taking out the 3rd out of that chord. Really cool sounding chord, I think. All right. Again, that's arpeggiated just by playing straight through it. Or you can play that Hendrixy sort of movement. All right, do that twice. Then we're on to... right, that is a D sharp diminished chord. All right. Now, the best way I think to understand a diminished is it's just a chord of movement. It's a chord that's moving that D somewhere else. Okay? It's going to, in this case, it's moving that D bass, which is sort of a D seventh. If you think about the D seventh that you could play down on the fifth, right? So this chord right here, which is on the fifth string all the way to the second, it's 5, 7, 5, 7. Okay, I've got that written out. And you just take that bottom note, that D, and sharp it. Move it up to the D sharp. You get the diminished. And it's a chord of a lot of tension. It's got to go somewhere. It's trying to resolve. All right, and that's why it's so effective. Okay? All right, so it goes like this again. Now back to the A. That's an F sharp. Now you can just play the straight F sharp minor. Mayer doesn't do that. He plays a kind of a funky chord here of transition. I don't even know the name of that chord, but it's an F minor something with an extended who knows what. All right. And basically, it's just an F minor, and then you're taking the 4th fret on the 4th string and moving it up to the 6th. So it's a bit of a stretch. Again, it's a chord that doesn't want to stay very long, so he just goes back to an F minor after that. If you just want to play an F minor, it's going to sound just fine. B minor, E 7th. Oops. All right. So what happened there? So we went from B minor to E7, and now the turnaround. A, walk up on the 6th string. So that's 7 and 9. Okay, now here's our really neat chord here. Here we are. That's the Hendrix chord that you get by taking, imagine this, you're playing the 7-7-7 on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings, like this. And you're hammering on to the 9th the first time. Now you're hammering on to the 8th. And it goes, that's basically a D chord to a D minor type of chord. Very effective. Again, it's a chord of movement. It's not going to stay very long. It's really just trying to hit this bass note right here. Back to the A. Walk up to the E 7th. Now the way I play that is by playing that note right there, which is on the 5th string, 7th fret, sliding up to the 9th, playing the A that's on the 4th fret, 4th string, 7th fret, sorry about that, 4th string, 7th fret, and then playing that E7 triad. Okay? All right. So that's it for the first verse. Sounds kind of complicated, but when you put it all together, it's really simple movement. It's really just A, D, and E7, but we're jazzing it up a little bit by playing some chords of movement. All right. On to the bridge. Now the bridge is basically 2 chords. B minor and F minor. Okay? Now, he's jazzing it up a little bit by playing these 4ths. And that's just essentially, you know, it's got that sort of sound. It sort of sticks sound. Anyway, what we're playing here is just on the 4th string 4 and on the 3rd string 4, and then moving that down to 2 and 2. Okay, that's what we're playing over that B minor. And then on the F minor, we're just doing that, but just on the 5 and 4 instead of the 4 and 3. But if you just want to play, now you do that 3 times, and then you go to a B7. Back to the verse again. So that bridge basically is B minor, F minor. You do that 3 times, and then after you do it 3 times, you go to a B7 chord. So it's trying to change the flavor of it. Instead of a B minor, which is diatonic, to A, play that B7. It's done a lot in jazz blues where you're playing with the flavor of the chords to put a little bit of tension or interest in there. And then the E7, ready to resolve back to the A. Okay, so that's the bridge. I forgot to mention how it gets into the bridge. It does this on the A. That little slide there is pretty common. Starts out with the root at A, 7, slide up to 9, hit the 5th string 7th, and then walk it back down. And then back to your B minor. And that's the bridge. Okay. Last part, and that is the last verse. Now I should say, even though the chords are the same, Mayer puts a lot of interest in it, I think, by changing the instrumentation, building the whole song up, and he plays differently. The first time he's arpeggiating as he goes through the verse. Second time through he's playing like 2- and 3-note chords, little Hendrixy stuff, but very subtly. Instead of the whole chords. And so forth. And that's just because he's got a lot of other instruments that are helping him out. So if you're playing this alone or in a small ensemble, you'll probably have to play fuller chords. All right, the last verse, my favorite, has really cool jazzy move in it. Starts out the same way. It's A to A7, and you heard I was trying to put in those little B.B. King licks. Yeah. Anyway, starts out on the A, 2 bars of that, and then 2 bars of A7, just as before, to a bar D, or a bar of D, yeah, and then a D diminished. So far, so the same. Now, I'm just playing the octave there up at the 17th fret, which is a little B.B. King maneuver that he used to do. All right, now, very cool. Instead of playing the F minor, just imagine playing the A7 and walking it down to that F sharp, but leaving it on the 7th. Don't play F minor. Very cool. Gives an interesting change. Now, if you listen to the lyric, it matches the lyric, too. A little upbeat change. Instead of minor, he's playing a 7th, which is, not as sad, right? The minor is going to be sad. But that 7th isn't so sad. I don't know, I really dig how he does that. B minor, E 7th or E dominant. I'm playing a 9th there. C sharp minor. I'm playing a minor 7th there. Now, what's going on there? Well, that's just a jazz move where he's going to back cycle back to the A. If you think about it, this is actually very common. C sharp. Then we're going to play the F sharp. Again, I'm playing a 9th, but you can play a dominant, a 7th or something, just like we had here before. Okay, so C sharp minor 7th to a F sharp, and you heard me do a little flurry. That's just a little flurry over that C minor chord. Okay, so C sharp minor, F sharp, ninth, B minor, there's my E dominant, and I put a little 13th on it. All right, now that's what's called a back cycle, that idea of going from C sharp, take away a sharp, go to F sharp, F sharp, take away a sharp, go to B, in this case minor, 7th, okay, take away one more sharp and you get the E, and we're ready to resolve back to our top key, which is the A. All right, so at the very end he plays the same thing as in the introduction. And on that A 7th. He puts a few more notes in at the end, but that's pretty simple. Something like that. Anyway, he puts in a few more notes at the end, but you can just play the intro and it'll sound just fine. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. I love this kind of stuff, as you could probably tell. And this is my kind of old school blues, and hope you enjoyed it. All right, we'll see you on down the road.